would be like Adam West Batman villains.
I'm fine with that.
I mean, as long as it's the Penguin.
I like the Penguin, but the Riddler was pretty great too.
No, it was so campy. It was like Riddler was the quintessential of Adam West campy.
That's the point.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Hello, and welcome to Fantasy Awash. This time, once again, with Mr. Fantasy Awash, Josh. Whenever I say Mr. Fantasy Awash, I think of Pitbull saying Mr. Worldwide, and then that's what goes through my brain.
Mr. Worldwide! That is a reference I don't understand.
Probably not. We are going to be talking today about our top 5 books of the year. We are going to also add a bonus book because I don't think we could really narrow it down.
Because top 6 doesn't really get the
clicks. The algorithm doesn't like a top 6. It likes a top 5 with a bonus, but you don't know about the bonus until you click the thumbnail that says top 5. So let's get into it. So are you ranking yours in order that you...
Yeah, I'm going honorable mention down to number 1.
Okay. You start then.
Okay. Honorable mention, books of 2023. We begin with Midnight Falcon by David Gemmell. This book is not quite my cup of tea in terms of fantasy. It's, I guess, epic fantasy or heroic fantasy would probably be the best description, which is not quite the kind of book I like, but I found Gemmell's writing to be a lot of fun. I found the adventure to be very present, and I found the characters to be compelling, so I really enjoyed his series. It's a four book series. There is a time jump in the middle, which I think is very interesting, how he ties the first 2 books into the last 2.
Honorable mention, because I tried to pick books that weren't by the same author in the top 5, is Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. This is such a good book. Such a good book. It restored my faith in the Stormlight Archive because I had a very tumultuous relationship with The Way of Kings. This book, from start to finish, was fire. I want Josh to read the series just so he can read this book because it's so good. It's such a good book.
We have something going. Maybe you guys can support me in the comments. Please support me, not her. She wants me to read the entire Stormlight Archive that's out in exchange for me teaching her how to play chess. I find that that's not a good trade-off.
For the amount of time we will play chess over the course of a lifetime if we don't kill each other by that point, because I will get frustrated at losing at chess and you will not have read the Stormlight Archive yet. This will take you a lot less time, but alas.
I think she should learn to play first.
I think it's not fair either way. But Words of Radiance, I think, is probably the best book I've ever read other than Clash of Kings. It is excellent, so I loved it. It's my honorable mention. Highly, highly, highly recommend.
Into my top 5, which you really clicked on the video for. Patrick Rothfuss, Name of the Wind. I know there's a bit of controversy about Patrick Rothfuss lately. I read his books before that came out, or at least before I knew about it. Both books, the first 2 of, I believe, what it's supposed to be a trilogy. It's a long coming trilogy. Both books I found very good.
At this point, I think it's a duology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt that The Name of the Wind, which is the first book, was not quite as compartmentalized as the second book. The second one seemed to have, almost read at times like mini D&D adventures summed up in chapters, whereas Name of the Wind was a little more flowing from chapter to chapter, which I really enjoyed. I found the main character to be a lot of fun to follow, and the book also has a few time jumps, I'll say, which at first I did not like, but as the book goes on, I found those to be really effective part of storytelling.
I don't know how to rank these in a going order now. So
then why'd you ask me?
I don't know, because I wanted there to be some order in the thought that it would cause order for my life, but I can't decide because I love them all.
That's the story of our marriage.
Pretty much. So these are all interchangeably my favorite book this year, but also simultaneously not my favorite book this year because a favorite by its definition is one. Here we go. Augustus by John Williams. I loved this book. Josh knows all about my affinity for Augustus. It has been long-standing, pretty much since he met me. I love Augustus so much. And John Williams did an amazing job telling this man's story. And it wasn't even just the story of Augustus, really. It was everyone who had been touched by Augustus, down from a soldier that doesn't even really have a name, up to his nanny, his daughter, his friends, and eventually himself. The language that's used in this book is beautiful. The prose are beautiful. The letters, because it's an epistolary format, are just so engaging. And I felt that John Williams was a classicist because he had the history so accurate, which is so nice for historical fiction. Loved this book. Gave it 5 stars. We'll read it again at some point. I've been pushing Josh to read it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Everyone should read Augustus if they like historical fiction, and even if they don't, because it's worth reading.
All right, number 4. This is where you lose some viewership. Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So this book is called A Stitch in Time. It's written by a gentleman named Andrew Robinson, who played the character of Garrick on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is probably my first or second favorite show of all time.
What's your first favorite show of all time?
Probably Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
There it is.
But Andrew Robinson played Garrick. He really owned that role, it seems. And after the show was completed, he wrote a manuscript that I believe the story is it had trouble getting picked up and then trouble getting published because no one thought that the actor was going to be a good author. Turns out that this book for DS9 fans is the highest rated piece. I don't even want to call it fan fiction, participant fiction. But
a new genre, guys.
But he really did a great job of delving into his character. The writing was surprisingly good, and the book was excellent, and it was a great character study for one of the most documented and controversial characters in the whole Star Trek universe. So I'm revealing my nerddom right now. I'm sure Laura's going to go back to one of her mainstream fantasy books.
Mainstream, yes,
but
absolutely.
That was my number 4 book this year.
Anyway, Circe by Madeline Miller. I loved it. If we're staying in the ancient world, this is so good. I don't love mythological retellings by their nature because I tend to find that they fall under more of the romantasy genre, which I don't love romance in general. But this book was special. From the opening line, it's my favorite opening line of a book that I've ever read. I love the character of Circe from the Odyssey. I just thought that the way she wove in so many myths, I actually have a video on my channel about all the myths that are in Circe, was so beautifully done because really it's like she didn't leave anybody out from the pantheon, and I thought that that was super, super impressive. We also got more background and characterization on gods like Mercury or Hermes that we don't really know all that much about in general, which I thought was really fun. So I love this book. I also read a short story by her this year, Glatia, which is a retelling of the Pygmalion myth. I've yet to read Song of Achilles, but it's on our shelf. It's like right behind Josh's head right now. And yep, there it is. So this is another book that I've been pushing you to read because I think it's so, so good because it's just beautiful. And also look at the cover. I mean, gorgeous.
All right, my number 3 is a shared one, so I guess we can discuss this together. It is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This is
Mr. Joe Abercrombie.
The first book of his trilogy, his completed trilogy.
He has 2 completed trilogies.
He does, yes. Mr. Rothfuss, take note. Also, Mr.
George R.
Martin.
We're looking at you, George, but alas, you're not looking back at anybody, so it's fine, except the checks coming in from
he's looking but this book is a character-driven book, not a plot-driven book. I found that the plot was still very compelling.
Yep.
The characters more so. But the plot being told through the characters and being second is an interesting way to go about a epic fantasy, I suppose you would say. And Joe Abercrombie, being the excellent writer that he is, his writing skill is second to none.
Love him. Yeah, so much. Who's your favorite character, Josh?
Jazal.
Yeah, it's Glocta. 100% Glocta. Love Glocta. Santan Glocta.
Yes.
Got a stamp on my heart.
He's so funny with all the stuff he does to people.
He is very funny.
How
I
hilarious.
enjoy him. And the very first introduction you get, well, I guess at very first is redundant in terms of an introduction. That's what an introduction is. You meet someone for the first time. But the first time you meet Sandan Glokta is hilarious. And I laughed out loud for probably 10 straight minutes. And I love him so, so much. I've talked about him pretty much at length any chance I get on this channel. When I did my mid-year book tag, I said that Sandan Glokta was my fictional crush, and I love him so, so much because he's the best. Can't beat Sandan Glokta.
She says Giselle is me, so I gotta like him.
I mean, maybe parts of Giselle. I don't want people to get the wrong impression of you because Giselle is such a douchebag so often. So, not quite true, but there are parts... When I'd say book 2, Giselle is more you than book 1 or parts of book 3, but alas. You should read the whole trilogy because the whole trilogy is great, but we seem to be in the minority that we like the first book the best of the 3.
I thought it was the best of the 3.
Even though I liked all 3 books. They were all great. You should read them. Joe Abercrombie, what a mensch. Love him.
Well, from a few books ago, the best first line of any book Laura ever read to the best last line of any book I've ever read is A Brightness Long Ago by Guy Gavriel Kay. This year was my first exposure to GGK thanks to a book that Laura got me for Christmas. A Brightness Long Ago is a story that's set in GGK's universe that I believe about 5 or 6 of his books are set in, which is a slightly fictionalized version of medieval Europe.
It's historical fantasy.
It's historical fantasy. And this book takes place in a roughly, I would say, about 15th to 16th century Italy, or his equivalent of it. And the book, again, is a good character study. There seems to be a theme emerging for why I like books this year. I would say the book for me was probably about a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. Very good book, and GGK's writing is gorgeous. But the last line, the last sentence of this book was so good that I would have to say it ended up probably being a 9 out of 10 for me, just on the strength of that last sentence.
You're rating it out of 10?
Out of 10.
I always rate out of 5, so I guess you'd be a 4 out of 5.
A 4.5 out of 5.
4.5 out of 5. Yes, of course, 8 would be
Yes,
4.
ma'am.
Yeah, I
So-
can't do basic math, guys. Here we are.
Yep.
This is why I was a history major.
But you don't have to major in math to know 9/10 equals 4.56.
Carry on.
Anyways, A Brightness Long Ago, excellent book, the second best one that I read this year.
Okay, so I have 2 books left, and again, they're really interchangeable, so it's fine. But my other Brandon Sanderson book of the year is Warbreaker. This is my favorite Brandon Sanderson book. I love this book so much. I was just saying before how I don't love romance in books, and this is probably the exception because Sanderson wrote this on his honeymoon for his wife Emily, and it showed because it was such an endearing relationship by one of the main characters in the book. I thought the magic system in this book was so brilliant, and it had me thinking at the end of it, why had no one ever thought of this before, even though it's so incredibly unique? It just made so much sense to me after I read it. The world is vivid, colorful, and brought to life. The characters in this are some of my favorite in the Cosmere. Light Song specifically is my favorite character in the Cosmere, as well as Nightblood. And they are both present in this book. So this is my top Sanderson read. It'll be hard for Sanderson to top this book for me unless he writes the long-awaited sequel. But I don't think we're getting that for the next 15 years. So who knows? But Warbreaker, please read it. And it is a great entry point to the Cosmere if you don't want to start with Elantris or Mistborn. And this is a standalone, so read it.
And at least with Brandon Sanderson, you do have hope that another book will come because
he
is
endlessly
producing
publishes
books.
I'm now disappointed because next year I'm not getting 4 books from him, and it's going to be really basic, and he's only going to publish like 1 or 2.
He's got to really get with it.
Seriously. What are you doing, Brandon?
Number 1 book of the year for me is the gateway drug that Laura got me for GGK for Christmas, Lions of Auerson. This book is probably my second favorite book of all time to A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. There's nothing wrong with this book. Everything about it's excellent. The characters, the plot, the timing. Timing is a very big thing in this book, both in terms of how the story is told and the events that are occurring to the characters and within the plot. This takes place in the same medieval historical fantasy world. This time it's in Spain during the Reconquista. I'd say probably about the 12th century. A few characters have historical counterparts, at least loosely based on historical counterparts. El Cid is one of them. And I found that this book was just 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 12 out of 10 on every single way you could rate it. So Lions of Alversan, I highly recommend if you have not read it that you stop what you're doing. If you're driving, you pull the car over and you run to the nearest bookstore and you buy it.
Or if you're driving, you can listen to the audiobook because the audiobook is quite good for it. You know, that works too. So my final pick, oddly enough, I'm looking at my list here, and this is the only non-5-star for me this year, but it's on my list. And it's interesting because I also read Lions of Alversan this year, and I wanted to put it in my top group, but I knew you were going to, and I didn't want us to have 2 books that overlap, so that's fine. But I also love Lions of Alversan, so you should definitely go read it. But Pure and Easy, I gave a 4.5 out of 5, and the longer it has sat with me, it has become a 5-star on reflection. This book is probably the most atmospheric book I've ever read. I knew nothing about it going in. I loved everything about this book. First of all, it's super short, so you can digest this really quickly. But you're going to want more when you read it because it's one of these books that pulls you in and just is so captivating from the very first page. It is also in epistolary format in that it is written in a journal. Our main character is a man named Pure and Easy who lives in this magical house, and that's all I'm going to say about it because I want Josh to read it very, very soon. And
this is supposed to be a no spoilers video.
It is a no spoilers video, and that was basically on the back of the book. So it's
no spoilers?
No, that he lives in a house and his name is Pure and Easy. So there you go. But this book is everything someone would want from a fantasy novel, especially if they are into low magic but love mystery. It is good characters, good storytelling. The prose is absolutely beautiful. The setting, though, is so good. And I dreamt about this book for probably 3 straight weeks.
I've heard about these dreams for probably 3 straight weeks.
It was really, really weird. So a book has never stuck with me in the same way that Pure and Easy did. I've loved books before and they've touched me and they've imprinted me, but this one changed the way I looked at life and the way I looked at people and the way I looked at time. So yeah, highly, highly, highly recommend Pure and Easy. I love it. It is a phenomenal read and it should be on everyone's list to read if they have not already read it.
That recaps our top 11 books of the year. Top 6 in one share. Also, today's vocab lesson apparently is epistolary.
Epistolary, yes.
Yep.
And basic math is that 4 out of 5 is not 9 out of 10.
No, it is not.
It's not. So you learned it here first, guys. Welcome to your 4th grade and maybe 8th grade education. Who knows? I don't really know, but it's fine. If you like videos like this, you can hit like and subscribe and leave us a comment down below as to what your favorite books of the year were. You can not have a top 5. You can have as many books as you want. I don't really care. I'm always interested in seeing as to what other people liked this year. And we have lengthy TBRs for next year already. We have a lot of books under our Christmas tree waiting to be opened and consumed. And we have a lot of books behind us that we still need to get through because we've read some of them and we haven't read all of them. And then one of us has read some and hasn't read the other. So what would you say is the book you're most excited to read next year? Just off the top of your head. No pressure.
Augustus.
It's an acceptable answer. I'm okay with that.
What about you?
I don't know if I can narrow it down to just one, but I am looking forward.
No, give me an honorable mention. It's the top 6 of books we're looking forward to next year.
So many to choose from. I'm looking forward to trying Malazan. So Gardens of the Moon is up there. And I am excited to get through Stormlight and experience Stormlight 5 with everyone at the same time. I think that'll be exciting because I had not read Brandon Sanderson until this year. And yeah, it should be good. So yeah, you heard it here. Top 6 books of the year. 11 collectively. It's great. Hope you all have had a great reading year and we will see you next time. Bye. Hi friends, this is just a post PSA thing. For people that follow me on Instagram, you might have known that we lost our eldest cat this week. He came down with cancer pretty quickly, and it's been a big loss to our family. He was about 16 and a half years old, so been with us for a long time. And our vet was telling us that euthanasia rates go up like crazy in December for some strange reason. So just take care of your animals, make sure to get them checked. We were in a situation that he had a silent killer of cancer, and we were monitoring him, and unfortunately we couldn't do anything about it. But a lot of things are treatable for your pets. So look at getting pet insurance if you're a new pet owner, and just love an extra on your animals this holiday season. So that's it. Just love on them. See you next time.